Hello, everyone. My name is Gitika Gorthy, and today I'm here with a very special guest, Ms. Raghavan. Ms. Raghavan is currently a professor at the University of Central Florida, where she is a faculty and researcher in mechanics of aerospace structures and materials. In 2019, she was named the Aerospace Educator of the Year, a national award given by women in aerospace. I am so excited to be able to talk with such an amazing woman in the space and education industry. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today.
Well, it's great to meet you.
Yeah, before we kind of get into understanding your journey of how you got into the space industry, I was wondering if you could tell us more about your typical day. I know it's probably a little different because of the virtual setting, but how does it usually run?
So, in a typical day, I usually go on to campus and I have a lot of my students in classes. So, I'm either teaching classes or I'm in my research lab where I'm running experiments or helping my students actually run experiments. So, I do a lot of different things like that. Sometimes I'm in my office meeting with students, or sometimes I'm working on writing papers and writing proposals. So there's several different things. Also, as part of the university, I help with organizing the course content and things like that. So often we have a lot of meetings to discuss how to improve classes and general service related activities.
Yeah, and I'm sure because you're a professor and a researcher, there's a lot of research projects like you're talking about that you've been a part of. So, what's the most exciting research or something you're working on now that you'd like to share with us?
I'll say some of the most exciting research I've done are they're just done in collaboration with other researchers. So I have a particular research topic on looking at the insides of materials and seeing how they behave when they're under really difficult conditions or extreme conditions. So you know that when we try to access space or we have access, we were trying to go for higher speed flight, there's always a need, whether it's for engines or wings or structures, you always need to have these materials exposed to these conditions, right? So they're complex conditions in aerospace engineering. And a lot of times I work on experiments and we try to replicate some of these conditions here on Earth and in a laboratory environment so that we can try to get it as close to what it would be in an operational environment. That way, we can figure out if the materials fail early or why do they fail, what are the mechanisms of failure, and we look at these failure modes with different types of measurements. The most interesting project I have was to try to replicate the behavior of a turbine blade in an engine environment. So, under really high temperatures and rotating, but try to create an experiment that mimics that and be able to measure the performance of the materials and understand exactly how they behave and how they're degrading over time.
That's so cool. Do you work on these projects with your students, or is this something that you do with other professional researchers?
I work on the topic with, or I collaborate with other researchers to come up with the ideas for the topic. Most of the time, the students get to do all the exciting hands-on stuff, and I help to guide them. And since I was a student before and I got all that excitement, I'd like for them to get as much experience. But we run some of these tests in national labs around the country. So we work at a synchrotron, for example, which is like a particle accelerator, using X-rays to probe these materials under these conditions. And whenever my students have to go out to do these experiments, I go along with them and help them or give them advice as they run into challenges or problems. So sometimes I'm part of the experimental effort, and sometimes I'm just sitting back and watching them really take a stab at it.
Yeah, that's so cool. I know that's something that I'm really excited when I'm a college student to be able to work on it, cool experiments like that. So, how are you able to conduct this type of research or doing things virtually? Because obviously you can't collaborate with
Yes.
others in person, and it's harder to go to these laboratories.
Right. In fact, these are some of the questions that we've been trying to deal with and answer. And it's nice that we have great collaborators who manage to come up with solutions that can help us to deal with these situations. So we have redesigned some of the experiments that we were supposed to do in person at a synchrotron so that we can mail in our samples to the scientists over there, and they are our collaborators. And eventually they will take some data for us, potentially not under the exact conditions we want to, but maybe in a way that we can still get some good information. And we hope that in future we will go back and get more information. So the work still carries on in a little different way. We discuss a lot about what we're trying to look for. We mail in our samples and they help us to take the data.
Yeah, and one thing I was curious about is I know a lot of researchers around the world conduct certain research on specific topics. How do you take this research and, kind of take it to apply to something that's useful in real world application, or, kind of take it beyond just writing a paper? I'm just really curious to see what it's like.
Yes, that's really interesting. It's a it's really difficult to some extent to go from fundamental research to something applied. And in fact, we have one or two projects where we are trying to do that. So we have ideas to use little nanoparticles as sensors, and we want to try to apply it as sensing materials on an aircraft. Um, the idea of how the sensor works is something that we work on fundamentally with little experiments and tests and collection of data and analysis of data, and we do all of that in the lab. And then we try to collaborate with companies, and this is the way we try to establish what they really need and how do we translate that research that we've developed into something that they can apply and apply easily. There are many different barriers to that. Some of them could be that whatever we design needs to be qualified for use on an aircraft, and that qualification process can be complex. In other areas, we have to look at what are the current manufacturing processes and how does our idea fit in that so that it doesn't disrupt what they already do. So there's many different details that we have to think about, and usually it takes some time to transition, but with a good conversation with industry and researchers, we are able to kind of overcome some of these challenges.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know that now that we got kind of an insight into what your research is, which is absolutely so cool. I'd love to read more about it later. I was wondering how you got into the space industry, because I feel like there's a story behind every person, and it's not just a straightforward path. Like from littlehood, I was like, okay, I'm going to go into aerospace engineering. It doesn't work like that. So I wanted to understand about your journey. Like, did you know from when you were a younger child that you wanted to go into aerospace? Or did you kind of have some twists and turns, like you wanted to go engineering and then you discovered space? Like, did you have any like twists and turns in your path?
Yeah, I think when I was young, I wanted to be an engineer, and I that was kind of inspiration there was my dad. He was an engineer. He was an electrical engineer, so I saw what he did. He worked at power stations and lots of huge machinery, and he was in charge of making sure everyone had electricity at home. And whenever there was any issues with that, he was always out trying to get something done. So I looked at that and I was very interested in learning more about being an engineer. And I used to help him with small projects that he came up with at home. So I was his little helper, and he always used to tell me, "Oh, you got like a knack for it." So that kind of gave me the confidence to think that, oh, I think I would make a good engineer. I went into engineering as in college, not really knowing exactly that I wanted to do aerospace engineering. But along the way, I always was interested in flight. I used to live near an airport, and sometimes I would just go to the airport. They had really great ice cream at the airport somehow. So, but eventually I realized that while I was eating that ice cream, I would just watch the airplanes take off and land. And that ended up being much more interesting than just going out there to eat the ice cream. So I would go off and just go every weekend. Practically every weekend I would be spending my time just at the airport, just watching the planes take off and land. And eventually I felt like I wanted to learn more about how that works. I had a good idea of what I wanted to do at that point, that I wanted to be, an aerospace engineer. And I took all the classes that were needed in college that were designed for that area, learned more about it, and eventually got an internship in a company that does aerospace engineering. And that was a really great break because I learned much more about all the different areas in aerospace engineering, whether it was aircraft or space, or even among those topics, there are structures, propulsion, and aerodynamics. And there are people who do computational work, and there are people who do design and experimental work and testing. So there's so many different fields within that field. And it was really complex, but I started to get a lot of experience in aerospace structures. And so I started to do more research, or more effort, more of my effort was in that area. And when I did my master's, I did it in aerospace structures as well. And that's what I did for my PhD. And that became my focus. And so structures and materials are my focus. And sometimes, these topics require a lot of interdisciplinary knowledge. So I am and aerospace engineering is that way anyway. You have to have knowledge in physics, optics sometimes, and all of these things work together for you to figure out what's going on. So I guess there weren't too many twists along the way, but I kind of knew what I wanted to do, engineering first, and then slowly aerospace engineering, and then I went all the way with that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad that you were able to kind of discover that you loved it, even if it's looking through flights. I know everybody has an inspiration point. Some people, it's like watching this great space movie. I was talking to someone earlier, and they said as a little kid that you would watch a lot of space movies, and that's how they were like, oh, I want to go to space. So there's definitely some small moments that can, trigger someone to want to do it in the future. So I'm glad to hear that.
Right.
And also, being named the Aerospace Educator of the Year is a very significant accomplishment. And how are you using this platform in order to help students get into aerospace?
Well, most of the time, I don't even think about it, but that title is a title. I'm so glad that I've got that. Many different people I know who are really my role models have got that award. So I'm really glad to be in that, group with them. What I do know is that from the start, I've always been excited to bring other people into engineering, um, and um, and for them to get a feel of it, and to feel like they can do it, and it is for anyone and everyone who's interested. So what I have done, and this is from the past, regardless of whatever award that was, I've always had a need to include students at all levels in my laboratory activities. That's here when I'm at my university. And so I open up the lab to undergraduates for research. I have graduate students who do research, but it's really the various levels, and a sort of mentorship line, if you would call it that. I mentor my graduate students and my undergraduate students, and they in turn help me to mentor high school students who may be interested in working in our lab. And in that way, as one person, I have a group of people who are also getting excited about helping other people come into their research and understand it better. And it helps all of us because we sometimes have to simplify um, what we're doing to explain it in the simplest of ways so everybody understands it, and it helps us understand our work much better as well. And sometimes you have to talk about the applications of your work when you're dealing with various levels of students, and you have to explain it in a way that it makes sense that this could be applied in the real world. And when you do that, you understand a little bit more how you can apply it and what are your challenges as well. So I guess opening up my lab to a lot of different students is one way that I do that. The other way is always to kind of engage with the public and with students everywhere, or just anyone who wants to know about what research is about, what doing your graduate school is like, or what doing engineering is like, at all these different levels.
Yeah, I think that I completely agree with what you said. My parents always tell me that you learn better when you teach others. So, as I'm a high school student, I tutor students, and I realized that, oh my God, there's an easier way to solve this equation that I didn't realize before. So I definitely agree that you learn more when you teach others. And I agree with the fact that you said space is for all. A part of the reason I'm creating this interview series is to show diverse individuals that you can be a part of the space industry regardless of, your gender, your age, your economic status, or your ethnicity. There's no like barrier around it. And so I'm so glad to see such an inspirational woman and role model to, how you're opening up your platform and your resources to other students around the country. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Another question I'm really curious about is, did you have any obstacles during pursuing, up to where you are now? And if so, how did you kind of overcome those obstacles?
Yes, I think obstacles are there whenever you try to reach something beyond something easily achievable. You always have to deal with obstacles. So I had my fair share of obstacles, whether it was financial or uh, trying to go abroad to do a study to study engineering and to trying to get a scholarship or a fellowship to do that. Um, and also at various levels I've had that. Also, the other thing is, of course, you know f- uh, in a position trying to gain enough confidence in everyone around so that they think that you're capable of doing the job that you're given, and that they give you opportunities that you should be getting. So I think that's another challenge, especially for women in engineering, to not be relegated to writing reports, for example, when you're in a senior design team, and to actually get hands on and have people trust that you can do the job. So usually to gain trust, it's a little harder. Because sometimes there are people who are not going to expect much or expect the worst from you. So you have to kind of work to gain trust. And that can be kind of exhausting after some time as well. But I'd say that many of these challenges can be solved by getting help by people who really want to make a difference. So there are among people who maybe don't believe in you, that there are always people who are champions of diversity, and you have to seek them out and try to get them to help you, and try to get them to be your mentors and help lead you along the way. Other challenges I've had are trying to deal with having a family and study or achieve my goals. So when I decided to do my PhD, I had two small kids with me, and it was definitely difficult to try to do a PhD, but also have time for my kids. And I definitely had a lot of help from family. They really came to help me and support me while I pursued my goals. So I think one of the important things is looking around you to find a good support system, because you need it to achieve multiple things if you're trying to aim for something challenging.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think trying to find the positive people in your life and supportive people instead of just focusing on the people who try to bring you down is really important. I know in the space industry, again, there's so many stereotypes, which, you know, blocks people from really attaining what they want. I know there was this one lady, Miss Partridge, who I interviewed, who is a student from a Title I area. So her parents lacked a lot of financial money, and she had to go to a university which she wasn't sure if that was the right decision for her. So I definitely agree that, having parents who support you, even if it's not financially, but like motivationally and help her, achieve your goals is really important. So I'm glad that you were able to overcome your obstacle and, focus on the positive.
Yes, yes.
And I know you were talking about, getting your PhD and, getting into this education and looking for fellowships. Definitely is probably a hard part for you, but helped you kind of get knowledgeable about your industry. So was there a specific like internship program or a fellowship or something you were a part of that really helped you get knowledgeable about your industry?
Yes, I think when I first tried to find a program in aerospace engineering, I learned about this program in France, and that was a master's program. That was a really great program that I did with the French aerospace industry, that supported us to do a master's in France. And it was challenging, but it was a really great program that helped me to really be in the hub of the aerospace industry in France, which was in the south of France in Toulouse. That helped me also to meet a lot of different people from different countries who were interested and excited about aerospace engineering. And at that point in time, I really felt like I was part of this industry. I was right next to the French Space Agency as well. So I was very excited to be in an environment where I could see a lot of historic events taking place.
Yeah, I'm sure that I've heard fellowships and abroad organizations. There's so many of them. When I like search up sometimes like space internships or fellowship programs. There's like so many things that come up. There's so many opportunities in the space industry that have opened up in like the past decade, I feel. So it's really great. And the space industry is constantly changing, whether it be in terms of like inclusivity, but also like knowledge wise. I feel like every day either I go on Twitter or I look at some new stuff, there's like this new discovery that a space company has made. So it's really, mind blowing to see how much change we're making. How do you keep up with this change as a professor in a university and a researcher? I'm sure you already have so much on your plate, especially with your family. So how do you kind of keep your skills current and like try to take all the knowledge that's coming in every day?
Well, one of the great things about being in a learning institution is that you're always trying to be at the forefront of research and technology. So you're kind of looking at things that you want to make happen 20 years from now, maybe. So and all of us are trying to push the field further, and so there's a lot of reading that we always do as part of what we do as researchers. We have to be current with what's going on, what worked and what didn't work so far, so that we can come up with new ideas to help move the field forward. So a lot of reading, but a lot of interaction also with the industry, because the industry is really burgeoning right now. There's a lot of excitement going on, and I think one of the important things is how it has opened up to various companies and small businesses and startups to actually get involved in space access. And that has pushed a lot of technology forward as well, and made it much more inclusive to the participation of different people. And I think just having that connection as a university to always as an academic in a university, to always be in touch by having connections with organizations and industry, members in the industry. One of the really great ways to do that is to be part of a professional organization. I myself am a member of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and I have been a member for more than 25 years since I was a student. And I think that if you kind of connect as a student with a professional organization, which you should, then that's kind of like the place where you network with people from many different areas in your field. And that helps you to really understand what's going on in the different areas in the field, and how the industry is doing, and what they're interested in, but also to connect your own students with them, and discuss many ideas that you might have for the future and how they see it from an applications point of view. So I think professional organizations help a lot, and a lot of reading and discussions with students and other peer researchers. What's great, international research is also something I'm very interested and excited about. So I have collaborators from Germany, from the UK, and many different places that I connect with, and that we come up with ideas and research together.
Yeah, I definitely agree with networking. I think that's really important. I think when I was doing this interview series, I was able to connect with amazing professionals, which has kind of been like a web. So because of one person, it led me to two other people, which has led me to two other people. So it's like, it's really great to see how, you can learn so much from individuals. And you were definitely you were talking about how the space industry has changed with in terms of its access. I agree that because of private organizations like SpaceX have started up, and that has allowed for more space jobs. But now it's not just like government organizations like NASA or ISRO. It's more like there's so many companies around there for space consulting and space jobs. So I definitely think that has allowed for more access. So that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, what kind of excites you and what makes you nervous about the space industry? I know there's a lot of concerns when it comes to space budgets, but there's also a lot of excitement that buzzes around this industry. So, what makes you nervous and what makes you excited?
I'll start with what makes me excited. What makes me excited is that we can discover new things, and we are limited in discoveries. We've gone quite far in terms of at least materials discoveries. And we're pushing that technology to the forefront, but it will be exciting to see what we achieve when we have access to lunar resources, or even beyond that, Mars and beyond, right? So, and it's also exciting to learn more about how we can utilize these resources to learn more about Earth itself, right, and our environment itself. So observing what happens in other planets, and maybe access to other planets in the future might be a way for us to really understand our own environment better. So I'm excited about that. What I'm nervous about, well, I think that space access is very difficult, and along with the opening up of the space industry to a lot of different people. I also think the aerospace industry has been really one of the, I I think one of the best industries in terms of its safety record and its commitment to safety. So I'm hopeful that that will always remain, regardless of how big the field becomes, and that safety and commitment to safety is always taken seriously. So that is one thing I'm nervous about.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something that we all should be nervous about and cautious and remember not to ever cross that line that we created of, human safety, but also protecting life outside of Earth and like things outside of Earth and not contaminating, things out there. I definitely agree with what you're excited about as well. I think personally for me, when I first got into space, I was focused on more of like the mechanical side, but then I started getting into the biology side, and I started doing a lot of research on how different diseases or different your bones or your psychology could be affected when you do space flight. So human space flight has been something that I was really intrigued with, which is something that has not been isn't it's kind of a new career, to be honest. I feel like 2 decades ago, if you were talking about a space doctor, it wouldn't be as prevalent as it is today. So I think that's really, important that we're getting creating new jobs. I read this one article and it said, I don't know how many it was, but right now we have only like a few fractions of what the actual number of jobs that are going to the new number of jobs that are going to be created in probably 20 years from now. So it's really exciting to see the new research that's coming up, and it kind of reminds us that there's always more, and we're only like in a small portion of all the knowledge that we have to get. So
Yeah,
I definitely agree with
exactly.
what you're excited about.
Yeah, it's so much more to discover, and that's what I think is most exciting.
Yeah. And to kind of wrap up our interview, I really wanted to ask you this question, which I ask every one of my interviewers, which is, what advice do you have for young people, or something that you could tell, some yourself from like 10 years ago, about the pursuit of pursuing a passion that they have in the STEM or space industry? Like some advice that you wish you knew 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think the first and most important advice I'd have is to reach out and to actually ask for help. I think most of us, as when we are young, we tend to think that we don't know enough, that we shouldn't be talking to people who are experts in the field until we know enough. And so, that kind of thought process was with me when I was young as well. So I was afraid to reach out too much to my advisor, to my professors, maybe, or even if I was in high school, I don't think I would have ever thought of talking to professors in a university, because I was too afraid to do that. So I just felt like I didn't have enough knowledge to go ahead and do that. So I think that the first thing is to never doubt the interest and excitement of faculty or experts in the industry to actually talk to you and to help you. So there is definitely a lot of people out there who want to reach out, and and you should make that move as well sometimes, because they can't always find you. So that's one thing. And even I think I even believe that for myself. And when I first became a professor, um, I wanted to do research in a specific area. I had read a lot of good papers from a group of really expert researchers who had done, some exciting research. And at that point in time, maybe I had overcome some of that fear, and I picked up the phone and called them and said, I'm doing this research, and you guys are doing this, and I wish we could work together, because we have some good ideas that could come out of both our work. And it worked out fine. It worked out perfectly, and it has created so many more opportunities for many students. And now I have like maybe 20 students who went to Germany to do research, and it's just all about picking up the phone and making that call. So don't hesitate whenever you see something or someone. There are so many easier ways to connect now than there used to be at my time. So you'd have to maybe go see them or pick up the phone and call them. Here you can connect with them on LinkedIn, connect with them on Twitter, or email them, and you can start that conversation if you wanted to know more about a field, or wanted to understand how to get further in what you're trying to pursue. So I'd say that that's the biggest advice I'd give. The other thing I would say is never let any of these obstacles that come in your way kind of stop you. In fact, use it to kind of fuel yourself to move forward. So if someone tells you that you're not good at something, or you don't have a knack for something, or instead take that and say, well, I'm going to show you that I do. And because I think that all you really need to be successful in something is a passion and interest in it. All the rest can be something that you coach yourself, maybe, and learn from others. So maybe it takes longer to learn something because it's hard, and you don't have enough help with it. But if you push through, and if you really want it, and you have the passion for it, you will get there. So I think don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something. If you really want to do it, go ahead and give it your best shot. That's what I would say.
I believe those are some amazing words and amazing advice for all of us, including myself, to kind of end this interview. I know I took a lot of your time, and I
No.
just want to thank you. I think it's always important for everyone to have confidence in themselves and to reach out and not be afraid, as well as don't let any obstacles kind of hurt you, even though it is hard to get over them. I think it's important to remember that things will get better if you have passion and interest for what you're doing. And
Yes.
so that's always been something that I relied on, even if a lot of my family members, actually, no one that I know has been in the space industry. So instead of kind of going with what my parents did, I'm trying to go in a different way. So definitely following my passion is important. And I want to thank you so much for your time for
All
this
right.
amazing interview. I learned so much about your research and your story. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.